Hello and welcome to the Dynata training series. This is the third video in the series devoted to Dynata Audience Solutions, and in this video, my colleague Eric Ritter and I will walk you through a variety of advanced tips and tricks and techniques that you can utilize to manage more complicated studies or troubleshoot issues that may arise when utilizing Dynata Audience Solutions. In this session, we will cover a variety of topics, starting with how to manage multi-country studies, leverage target group templates, work with custom identifiers, data appends within your study, and how to troubleshoot issues that may arise relating to either redirects within your study or traffic issues that may be affecting the delivery of sample to your research. With that, I'm happy to turn it over to my colleague Eric, who will start by discussing multi-country studies.
Let's start with multi-country studies. Multi-country studies would mean I would have several target groups with different countries, and each country would need a separate entry link. That automatically means I would need to set up several surveys as well, as each survey represents one entry link. If I, for example, want to run Switzerland and Australia, I would set up one project with one target group for Switzerland and one target group for Australia. And in addition to that, I would set up one survey link for Switzerland and one for Australia. Same goes for any other countries I want to add. I would need to add a new target group and, if needed, also another survey link. There is the slight chance that you might run a multi-country study with one link and a language selection, but I'm going by the example of having one link per country. For this, I would go in the test project, which I've already created, on the respondents page. And we can see here already, we already have Switzerland set up. I've labeled it as Switzerland German, have it already selected for 10-minute study, 500 completes, 80% incidence rate, and 5 days in field. In addition to that, I'm going to set up gender quota. I just want an equal split, as well as I'm going to set up age quotas. And also here, I'm putting a allocation on, and we'll take an equal split. Equal split, save, done. That would be the first country I would be running. I do just want to run a nice split over the gender and an equal distribution for age. For this, I would set up survey, and I'm going to be calling this Switzerland. I highly suggest that we always use a naming convention for each survey and for each target group we create, especially when working with several links and several target groups for different countries. This makes it way easier to know exactly what link setup is for which target group. And I have already prepared an entry link for Switzerland. Use the base link from one of our test projects in CMix, enter it, save it, having automatically PID and PSID attached, having the redirects down here, and I am also going to use test link. That one I have already prepared as well. Also here, PID, PSID already attached. Click the test button. Test it really quick, just to receive the OK. And now our Switzerland link is set up. That means we can go to the respondent section, add Switzerland to our link, press the Get Estimate button again, and Switzerland would be ready to launch. Now, this is supposed to be a multi-country setup, so we would need to add another country. Let's add the UK in addition to this one. I'm simply going to press the duplicate button, is I need the exact same amount of complete, same incidence rate, same days in field, and same LOI. And take some of the basic information already over. We'll rename this to UK. Going to change the country. One thing to always take into account is if you duplicate a target group, it will take over all of the targeting attributes, including the allocations which you have set up. As soon as you're changing the country, the targeting attributes will disappear. We will see this in 1 second if we go to the UK. We can see everything disappeared. The reason for that is targeting attributes might differ from country to country. Answer options might differ from country to country. And to avoid causing any issues on the back end, it automatically clears all the targeting attributes once the target group country is being changed. In this case, it's no problem at all. I'm setting up gender again, set all, allocation, split even. And I'm going to set up age in the same way as we've done it for Switzerland as well. 18 to 34, 5 to 50, 51 to 100, split even as well, and save. Now we can see we have age, gender, exactly set up as for Switzerland. And we can also see that even though we haven't touched the settings part with 500 completes, 80%, 5 days and 10 minutes, it has kept it exactly the same. Another point to keep into account is you can probably see we've already attached our Swiss survey, which we've created with the entry link on here. Because we duplicate this target group, it automatically takes them over. The safest thing to do before you do any next steps is always click this X to take it out, just so that you not accidentally launch with the wrong link on your target group. Now we're going to the target group, surveys, and can see here we just have Switzerland set up so far. We simply click on the blue button to add a new survey, insert a link. We're going to name this one UK. Also for the UK, we have already a link prepared. Save. Again, automatically attaches the PID and the PSID. The redirects are shown here again as well. And one thing you can see straight away as well is the basic code has not changed. We have for the UK set up 28570, and for our Switzerland setup, we have 28570 as well. That basic code changes on a project level. As soon as I would create a new project, I would get a new basic code. Within one project, it doesn't matter how many surveys I set up, I will always have the same basic code. That makes it easier if you set up a country with several languages and translations within CMix, for example. The redirect setup in there with that security code would just need to be done once. And then for every other survey you set up, you simply just need to enter the different survey entry link, and anything else will be set. The one thing missing here as well is, here we got a test link as well. Set this up, in, save, it automatically attaches PID and PSID again. We test this really quick, and can see here as well, test successful, ID successful. Now we have successfully set up 2 surveys, one entry link for the UK, successfully tested it, and we have set up Switzerland and also successfully tested that one. Now we go back to the respondent section and connect the UK link, which we have just set up, onto our UK setup as well. We can still see here, Switzerland is still connected to the Swiss link, and on the UK, where we've taken out the Swiss link, we go to the drop-down menu and can now see here the UK link as well. You can straight away see here why it is important to rename your surveys as well as your target groups. This was the setup on our survey site, which is done for the UK, this one for Switzerland. Makes it easy to differentiate which one is which. In case I wouldn't have renamed them, they would have simply be called Survey 1 and Survey 2, and it would have been more difficult for me to actually know still which one was for which. And it gets even more complicated the more surveys you add. UK is added here as well. get estimate, and now we see the launch button here as well. That means we've successfully set up one target group and one survey for the UK, and we set up one target group and one survey for Switzerland. Connected both parts, the survey to the target group, and would be ready to launch both. In the case that you do want to run several languages, for example, in Switzerland, in one country, you would need to set up one target group per language. In this case, I do want to run Switzerland, but I want German and French. And I want 250 completes from each one. I quickly reduce this one to 250 completes. Press the duplicate button. And now you can see that Switzerland German copy got updated here. I'm going to change this to French. Can now see here as well, I've set up Switzerland French, Switzerland German, and UK. I'm going back to Switzerland French target group, change the language from Swiss German to Swiss French, and we're done. I use the same entry link for Switzerland. I just want two different languages. And in this case, we can also see changing the language will not take away any of the targeting attributes because we are still in Switzerland and the targeting attributes are just being removed once you change the country. Press the Get Estimate button. Now I would be ready to launch my Swiss French part as well. So I've successfully set up 3 target groups for 2 survey links. I've set up 2 different languages in Switzerland, the French part and the German part, both for 250 completes with 80% IR and 5 days in field, as well as the age and gender quotas evenly spread. The French part, exactly the same, and we've successfully set up the UK. And that with 2 surveys which we have set up, one for the UK, one for Switzerland. And we can see straight away here as well, everything fits. We've set up the survey entry link and everything is okay. Survey exit links, everything is okay. And the same for the Switzerland link. In case anything would be missing or a test would still be required, it would show us straight away on this overview as well, which makes it easier once again if you have to work with several surveys. Oh, let's go back to our dashboard. Next part I would like to cover is target group templates. You have the possibility to work with target group templates which Dynata has already provided for you, and these are the NatRep census templates for every single country. These consist of age, gender, and region, as well as you're able to set up your own templates and save them. Let's go for this example into our test project again. We're setting up in the respondents part another country with a new target group. Let's set up Australia. Selecting Australia, it automatically selects English. Here's also just English available. We use the same 10 minutes, 500 completes, 80%, 5 days standard. Save define. And now have set up the basic settings for this target group. You can also see here, Australia has already been added and is in a draft mode, same as the other ones. So let's say I just want to set up a census NatRep template for this target group. What I'm doing is I'm going to the target group attributes and have at the very first option templates. Templates will always be toggled in. You can use it by simply clicking on it, toggling it up, and we can see here straight away census web. Clicking on this will automatically add age, region, and gender. And it automatically takes the percentages from the NatRep percentages, which Dynata would use on a PM Manage project as well. In case I have already something within my target group and I select one of my templates, it will always ask you if you want to override what you have already set up. If I would, for this example, just click the census wrap again, we get this pop-up, template versus existing attributes, When adding a template, existing attributes will be removed automatically. Are you sure you want to add the template? I'm just going to use the template and have the same thing again. The targeting templates are available for every country. Now let's get to the next step. How do I create my own templates and use my own templates? Using your own template is very easy. You set up all the targeting attributes with the allocation or filters which you need. And then you scroll to the bottom of your target group and you can see there's a Save as a Template button. For this one, as this is a NUT rep, we're just going to add that people are homeowners and people who own a car. Save. Now we got age, car ownership, region, gender, and that people need to own a house included. Now we click on the Save as a Template and a new pop-up shows up. Within this new pop-up, we can already see Save as a Template. It will show us what is part of this template. We have 3 allocation parameters, which is region, gender, and age. And we have 2 filters set up, owner rent and auto vehicle own lease. I can give this any name I would like. Test template AU. Can add a description. Save. And now the next time I want to set up Australia, I would have that template available. Let's for that purpose delete some of our parameters just so that we can see that the new template is being taken over. So now we have reduced the targeting attributes to region, to gender and own rent. Clicking into the targeting attributes template, and here we can already see test template AU has been added. Click on this one, overwrite the old one, and we can see now we're back to age, car ownership, region, gender, and that somebody owns a house or flat. You can add as many templates as you would like. There is no limit. The 2 things to take into account though is templates are available on a per country basis. So if I set up a template for Australia, this template will also just be available and being selectable if I set the country Australia up. If I do set something up in Austria, in the UK, or in the US, I will not be able to select that template. The templates are available for your whole company. So in case you do set up a template, keep in mind to put a description in, which makes it also easy distinguishable for your colleagues. And if for whatever reason you don't need those templates anymore, you can simply go into the targeting attributes templates and delete it. The only templates which you will not be able to delete are the Census Web templates which Dynata provides for you. So this was an intro on how to use templates, and especially if you run something every month, every week, and you always have the same target group attributes set up with the same allocations, and these are not census rep, it makes it easier for you and saves a lot of time using these templates and constantly run your studies with these templates. Let's go back to our dashboard. And now we're going to have a look into custom identifiers. Identifiers can be found at our survey. You can see them right here, the identifiers for our UK survey setup. And here we have the same with our identifiers for our Swiss setup. Identifiers are the 2 ID variables which are attached to the basic link which you enter in the survey entry link part. Some survey platforms might not be able to use our default ID names, which are PID and the PSID. So in case you do need a specific naming convention for your platform, all you need to do is go to the identifier section and rename them. You can simply click on here, change PSID, for example, to ID, save it, and now we can see it automatically changed that our session ID parameter is now called ID in the survey entry link as well. There are several survey platforms which do need specific ID parameters. This makes it possible for you to work with all of the platforms which you want to work with. The one important factor to take into account always though is the important variable out of these two is always the session ID. The session ID is always the parameter which we need to be piped back via the redirects as well. Let's go back to our dashboard. And now we're going to talk about data appends. Data appends are functionality within Samplify, which makes it possible to obtain demographic information on survey respondents and pipe them through a variable directly to your survey. This is being done via the URL append. In order to set them up, we need to go into our project, onto the survey sections, and can see straight away on both of the surveys which we have set up here for the UK data appends and for Switzerland data appends. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm just going to set up the UK. I can access the data appends option simply by ticking on here. One thing to take into account is data appends are optional. You do not need to set them up in order to set up a survey, test a survey, or to set up a target group or launch a target group. In case you do want to use them and want to find out more information about them, you can simply click on the Learn More or search on our knowledge base for data appends. Let's set something up for the UK. We simply click into the search field and can here again either search by a name or we can simply use the drop down and go to the UK. We got an option of several demographic parameters which can be set up. These might vary from country to country, and one thing to take into account is, while it might be possible to set up data appends, for example, for Argentina in our UK survey link, we wouldn't receive any information. So it's important that we do set up the data appends for the country which we've set up the target group as well, because otherwise we would simply receive blanks. In this case, we're going to use age, gender, and we're going to use region and want to have them piped through. We can see they have been added. We can also see the country where they have been added for the UK. In case I don't want to use age, gender, and geo-region, feel free to update them. Change them, for example, to A, G, and region. In case I'm saying, hey, I actually don't want 3 anymore, I just want 2, we can simply just delete the age. Now we just have gender and region. Same goes for the point. If I want to add more features, I can simply click on here. The UK will still be toggled on, and I can, for example, add number and household. Also this one, I'm simply going to rename to age, because I prefer having short named URL parameters. And now we have set up gender, region, and number and household. You probably wonder now, if I set these up, there are probably several options which can come true for R. How do I know which answer is going to represent what? For that, we have a very easy solution. For each data append which you set up, you get the option to download the data mapping file. Do take into account, first set up all of the data appends which you want to have, then click on the download mapping file. Clicking on this here will download us an Excel file, which we can open. And in here, we will see all of the answer option and what value each answer option will be piped through the link. In this case, we just open this up and we open up our option text and can see for number in household, which we pipe through via the variable age, we have option 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And for 1, a 1 is piped through. 2 and 2. But then we can see if the value 5 is piped through via the age variable in our link, it represents 5 or more. Similar goes for the regions which we have set up, as well as for the gender. 1 is, for example, male. For G, where we're going to be piping through the gender variable, and 2 would be female. You get the option to test with those parameters as well. In this case, we've set up GRH, And we already have automatically two identifiers on our link, which are ID and PID. Let's switch that to the SID. This is the one we will need for a successful test. And now we go down to the test section. Onto the test section, we can see now, next to the test button, we have a drop-down menu. Via this one, we can test our data appends. Clicking on here will make it possible for us to test with the parameters which we attached. We can see up here, it is automatically attaching G, H, and we can see that R is added to it as well. We're simply going to test one very quick again. And going back, we are seeing that everything worked fine. Go in here, can see once again, everything is done. And set up our data append for the UK, renamed our data append variables which we want to use. We had a look at the download mapping file option, check the mapping file, and we tested with them, and everything is working fine. Let's go back to our dashboard. For the next part, we're going to focus on redirect issues. Redirects can cause all kinds of troubles. Either the basic value is incorrectly set up, maybe the ID variable doesn't match what we need to have it called as in this scripting platform. Maybe the ID is not being piped back at all via the redirect. Let's have a look at 3 to 4 different options and how we can solve that and identify it. We're going to start with what happens if the basic code is being wrong. For that, I've already set up the CMix survey and had for our UK link the basic code, which should have been 28570 altered. We can still see here our previous test on this was successful. We had 2 successful IDs tested as well. One was for the normal test, the second one was for the data append test. And now we're going to click the test button again. We're testing without the data append. We're testing purely with the 2 ID variables which we're going to attach. And we're just going to click through and get to the end page. And here we can see an error message. That error message is saying that the basic value which we've been using is incorrect. Invalid basic value. Our system wants 28570 but got 28575. That already indicates that we are having set up our scripting platform with a wrong redirect. The basic code might be still from a previous project, which we've just cloned over and forgot to update it. But here is exactly where it would show us that this one is incorrect. Let's go for a PS ID, which is not being piped through. For that, we simply close this, and we're going back to our redirects page. Now we're testing how does it look like if the PS ID is not being piped through. I've corrected the basic code on our scripting platform to 28570 again, but I've taken out the ID identifier, which is PS ID. We are clicking on the test again and launch into our test mode again. Click through our survey again. And can see we get another error message. This time it's PS ID missing. And looking at the address bar, it shows us the basic code is correct, but the PS ID is incorrect. Depending on the scripting platform, this can happen because either the ID collector had not been set up. It could also be that the collector had been set up, but then for every collector, I usually need to set up a placeholder within the redirect. The placeholder in our case, what we show as an example, is PS ID with those brackets around it. Each single service scripting platform requires a certain identification. This is where the PS ID would need to go. CMix, for example, uses these types of brackets with PS ID in the middle. Other platforms might use other ones. I do know, for example, Decipher, Qualtrics, Questback, and so on. Each single one has their own way of signaling the system, hey, this is where I need to pipe the ID back to the redirect. Let's try out another version of us having a wrong PSID being piped through. This time we did set up a collector, but we did set it up incorrectly. Let's see what happens now. Clicking the test button again, launching into the test mode, mail, let's take 5100 this time, and can see here again, transaction ID not found. This is again an indicator our PSID is wrongly set up. In this case, looking at the address bar again, we can see the basic code is correct, but then here we have PSID equals PSID, which signals we've probably tried to put something in here, but we probably used the wrong placeholder for the system. And checking here our system as well, we can see it is simply PSID rather than having the brackets around it again. Let's have a look at another option here. This time, I've purposely changed the PSID to PID to see what happens if out of the two variables which we have available, which are our PSID, which is the session ID variable, and which should be piped through the redirect, but we actually have the PID, which is the panelist ID being piped through. We're clicking the test again. And can see the same thing here again. Transaction not found. We do this time see something has been piped through, but it is something else than what the system was expecting. Taking the 56257 and checking what did we actually go in with, we went in with PE_ref, and this is what the system expected back. Comparing that once again to our 56257 would mean we most likely went in with the wrong ID on our redirect. In this case, we can see here, we purposely used the wrong one. That's an indicator. That's another common mistake which can happen, that we accidentally, rather than the session ID, set up the panelist ID and try to pipe that one back to the redirect, and that will give us an error as well. Each single time we test it, we can see, was the test successful by hovering over the ID? Here the testing is still in progress, testing is still in progress. The reason that those last three are still in progress is because it did not receive this ID back via the redirect. So the system does assume that those IDs are still testing. And here we can see that the testing actually failed. That was the first one which we tried out, where the basic code was wrong. Another common mistake is that clients who have used us before on a, for example, end-to-end project or on a sample-only project, they scripted themselves and they received the redirects from our PM. In this case, the redirects from our internal sampling system to Samplify differ. Here we can see we have https api.dynata.com respondent, while our redirects which we are using on the PM managed system are dk1.surveysampling.com. So one of the other common mistakes is that accidentally the wrong type of redirect is being used. Rather than the Samplify redirects, our PM managed project redirect have been used. Let's see an example for that. Clicking the test again. Loading into the test mode. H. And can see here already again, wrong screen. This time we do not get a message which tells us something is wrong from our Samplify system because we're not even using the Samplify redirect. In this case, we use the dkr1.ssiservice.com and the PSID is piped through as well as the basic code is correct. But we do receive, unfortunately, error has occurred. We apologize for the inconvenience. This is an indicator that you've probably used the wrong type of redirect from our systems. If you do have any questions about any of the redirects or get stuck at any of these redirect stages, your first stop should always be question mark and go to the answers option and check for redirects and search for them, and we'll get a couple results. In this case, setting up survey entry links. We also have a specialized article, especially for CMIX, which we can click on, and it will show us step-by-step guide what we need to do in order to set up the survey entry link, as well as the redirects in CMIX and in Samplify. And we have maybe 3 redirects available for other systems as well. For example, in case you're using Qualtrics, you're able to have a step-by-step guide on how to set up the web collector and the ID placeholders within Qualtrics as well, similar to how it would be done. In case you're still getting stuck, feel free to use the ask functionality. As usual, select Samplify and let us know that you're getting stuck, and we're happy to have a look into this for you. Now we're at the last part of our session, and we're going to talk about traffic issues. Traffic issues are being seen differently by each single client. Some clients define a traffic issue with having slow traffic and not seeing anything coming in over the last couple of days. Other clients define having a traffic issue by simply having a slow traffic. Instead of the 5 completes, which I get every day, I just get 1 complete. And for each single time, there are several points which we can go through. A general checklist should always be check that the setup on your scripting platform is correct, and compare the metrics which you see on your performance tab, on your respondents tab, with the metrics which you are seeing on your scripting side. That usually already gives a first indicator. Is it something with my setup on my scripting side, or is it something which potentially just is on the targeting side? One of the most common issues here is potentially that we are actually looking for something which has a low IR and is a niche target. While at the beginning, we did have quite a lot of profile sample available to get a rapid progress being done. But once that targeting sample is replenished, we are using GenPop and need to get new people profiled. And that can lead to the point where the traffic suddenly dries down. And in those cases, we would need to change the targeting which we have and potentially take some of the targeting attributes out and take into account that we broaden our targeting, but potentially get more traffic onto it because we are starting to target people who are not specifically targeted for what we were looking for, but assume that some of the people which are not targeted with that specific attribute within our panel are still going to reach your survey and going to get through, rather than screening out because of the broadening of the target group. But let's go into one of our test studies where we actually had some starts on it. Go to the respondents page and check how the performance looked here. Okay, we can straight away see which one of the 2 target groups had been live, because here's our cost is 0. Here we had 626. Click on the performance. And what we can see here straight away is we had 2 completes out of 800. And our focus now to first investigate what can potentially be wrong on this study is by actually looking at this metrics, which shows the attempts, and of those attempts, where do people fall out? In this case, we had 302 starts, but just 1% was a complete. And about 55% actually screened out, which is an indicator, okay, potentially our incidence rate is lower than what we've expected, and we get that confirmed here. We've put in 80%, just at 1%, which means that the target group which we're looking for is potentially more niche than what we initially expected. On an occasion like this, we would potentially go into our scripting software and try to loosen up some of the screening in order to get more completes on a better level in again. Or we take into account that, okay, we do have a lower incidence rate. We're looking for a niche target. It is more niche than what we expected, and potentially need to adjust what we're actually targeting for. In this case, we have 1% to 80. But what we've set up was age, gender interlocked, and we set up the primary internet service providers. And you can see here for each single target group as well, for each single line, we can see these stats. And we can see here, the more orange we have, the more screen outs happen on each single one. And especially on the older population, we can see 70% screen out rate on the 51 to 99-year-old females. Here we got 68 on the 51 to 19-year-old males. So either I would try to find an additional targeting attribute where I would simply duplicate my target group, add an additional targeting parameter where I would think this probably fits my targeting better and I will get a higher IR out of it. Or I go into the scripting software and loosen up the screening criteria. Either way will work. And let's have a look at another example. In this case, I have prepared something. We can see here that we've achieved 237 complete out of 450. Recognizes the fieldwork is running slow. You can see our incidence rate is actually higher than what we originally wanted. We put in 80, we had 83. And also we put in 20 minutes, have 17 minutes. But what will cause the issue here is just what we can see on this field once again. We can see straight away, see here, 50% of that graph is yellow. Yellow is incomplete. So we have a dropout rate in our survey of 49%. Whenever the dropout rate is that high, our system will deprioritize your project because we are actually losing respondents which are going into your survey, never come back, and because of that have a bad survey experience. So what we need to do in those cases is check our scripting software, have a look, where do those people are dropping out. If we do not see any point within our survey that they're dropping out, double check the redirects. If somebody is a complete or screen out or quota for on your site, but does not get properly redirected to our site, they will end up as an incomplete as well. And then high incomplete number is the worst enemy of your project. And let's have having a look back at our UK and UK2 project, which was one of our test projects. Another issue which we can see from having slow traffic could be simply the devices we've chosen. The one thing we need to take into account is mobile and tablet usage is growing and growing that around the world. If our study is set up just for desktop, we will automatically know the traffic will essentially be slow. Not necessarily slow, but slower than on a normal study. And the other point which you do need to take into account is having just a desktop-only study will potentially, without any quotas in it, bias our data towards a more older generation, which has a way higher percentage of doing surveys on a PC. The younger age groups majority do all of the surveys on either the tablet or on their mobile. And that is a trend which is growing and growing and growing. To showcase another traffic issue which can be caused by simply having a very niche target like this, we're going back to our dashboard, going into our test project which we created earlier, go into the respondent section, and have a look at our targeting attributes. In this case, we did set it up: age, vehicle, geo, gender, and owned rent. The one thing we can see here already is for the majority of my quota cell lines, everything is green. But we have one which is low with 8 completes. It still shows green, which means we can achieve this. If we scroll up here, we can see we have a yellow one. Having a low feasibility still potentially makes your project feasible, but there is a risk that we might not be feasible. And the reason to solve issues like that is we need to keep in mind, once we launch this target group, that we had something in our targeting attributes which potentially limited the amount of total completes which we were able to achieve. In this case, we wanted 500 completes. And if we do not get the 77 here, we will not get to the 500 completes because we have an allocation on each line. And that can be a risk. That is something we always need to keep in mind when launching a study. But what we can do, once we do see that at the third, fourth day, monitor the field, we didn't see much progress from the third overnight to the fourth day. I would definitely pause your study, clicking on the 3 dots, pausing, and taking out one of the targeting parameters. The one thing which we do know is that once we've launched this target group, we are just able to modify the allocations, but we are not able to actually take any of the targeting attributes out. So what we would need to do is we would need to clone our RU after we pause the target group. Let's call this one EU new target. Then set this one up again. Leave it on the 500 completes and everything for now. And do take something out. I mean, what we usually do apply on things like that is common sense. So we do try to assume, okay, even though we have selected something in here which will limit the sample pool we're tapping into, and people actually would need to be reprofiled in order to fit our criteria. But what is something which potentially could everybody have without them being profiled? In this case, for example, auto vehicle own lease is one option, or own rent. It might not be that obvious that own or rent, that either one would have one thing, but in a country which is quite big like Australia, I assume that almost everybody would have a car unless they do live in a very big city. So I would start by probably taking the auto vehicle own lease variable out. Now I'm gonna have a look, okay, how many completes, if this would be live, I would see the performance tab here. Did I already achieve? Let's assume we've already achieved 350 completes in this target group, which means we're just 150 completes missing. In this case, I would adjust this to 150 completes, set up the remaining allocations to what I would need according to my scripting software, then would run the feasibility again, and would already see now, if I would want 23, 16 to 24-year-olds, I can without any problem get them. But the one thing which we forgot so far is we are already on the third day and we wanted 5 days in field. So we need to reduce this to 2 as well. Then run the get estimate again. And we will be able to see that we will have a different number here. In this case, 83, still feasible. So what I would do now is connect this to my survey and would simply launch this one again, with the assumption that I potentially will not have my 80% incidence rate, which I had in my Tara group down here, because I will have some people which will screen out now because I don't have the auto vehicle own lease variable in it anymore, where I specifically just targeted people who own a car, but assume that a broad majority of the people which I'm targeting in each of those regions, in those age brackets and in gender, and who own a house, will have a car as well. That is just one of the scenarios which you can use if you see that you're going to have a slow traffic. And that is probably one of the most common ones. Another common slow traffic issue is that you do set something up with interlocked quotas and something fills up always quicker than something else. So one thing you can do is, that's what our PMs on internal managed app projects would do as well, as try to front load certain target groups. In this case, we do know that, for example, 16 to 24-year-old males are always difficult to reach. So what I would probably try to do, if I have the region open, as well as own rent, I would set this up for 23 completes now. Add those 23 completes just here, put everything else 0. You can see we got the 23 out of 23, 100%. We can save. Here, I can see I don't really mind where they're coming from, but the one thing I can recognize here now is, because I limited to 23 completes, where I just need my 16 to 24 years to come from, I do have a quite limited amount what I can put in here. So you can go a risky route as well. Put this up to 50 and adjust everything in here for the 50 as well. And once again, down here, I put my females in 0. I want just males because I want to front load them. And that is how I would start the field. That would ensure that I would, at the beginning of my study, just collect 16 to 24-year-olds who I don't mind where they're living in. Male who own a house would be collected. The one thing I need to keep in mind though is, at the moment, I've oversampled over here, which means I went for 50. And I went for 2 days. I usually would do something like that, a front loading for 1 day, then would pause my field, and then simply go into my allocations or into my setting and add my other target groups for the ages in again as well. And launch this. That's just another tip on how you potentially can avoid a traffic issue towards the end, which can be created by something where you have interlocked quotas, even though you technically set them all up in a row. The most common issue will potentially always be that you're going to be ending up looking for 16 to 24-year-old males who have, in case you've set up income, who have $1 million of a national income and need 50 of them. And that is then a situation where you will not get around having to adjust quotas on your scripting platform just to get those last 16 to 24-year-olds. The last example which we're going to cover now is exclusions, which can have an impact on your traffic flow as well. If you do have too many exclusions in field, it is possible that at a certain point your study will dry out and you will not be able to get fresh targeted sample in it. So one option you will always have as well is, if you have those exclusions on, for example, if you would have selected at the point we launch, those are active, we can always pause the field and take out one exclusion by another to free up completes from previous studies as well. That can potentially, especially for very niche targets, help your traffic flow as well. And with this one, we're going back to our dashboard. And this concludes the third and final training session of our Samplify training video session. In this session, we covered advanced tips and tricks, like how to set up multi-country studies, custom identifiers, using data appends, identifying redirect issues, traffic issues, and how to set up your own target group templates. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and we hope you found this video series helpful. Please reach out to us in case of any questions, and be sure to ask Dynata for end-to-end help with your research and audience needs.